welcome into another episode of Triple Coverage Podcast. I am Lance Nelson. To my left, Scott Casson. To my right, Benjamin Shoop. What's up, Shoop?
Nothing much, It's that time of the year where NBA playoffs are starting up, and you have NHL about to start. Baseball is just kind of getting into full swing. Draft is right around the corner, so it's a great busy time of the sports year. So
About
next,
to make that $100 when the Celtics lose.
yeah, is they're gonna get upset in round one by the Magic? No. Well, it's gonna be a fun next 2 weeks for sports fans, and it's gonna be fun, especially for Bills fans, kind of ramping up here into the draft.
Right on, Scott. How you feeling? We're about a week away now. This is for those of you watching now and listening. This is pre-recorded on Wednesday night, as I have an engagement tomorrow. My wife's birthday is tomorrow, so not going to record a podcast on my wife's birthday, and this is pre-recorded on Wednesday. But Scott, how you feeling? We're a week and 1 day from the first round beginning, and exciting times here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love the draft. Always a fun weekend. And Ben, I will say, in the last 7 games, you know what the Celtics record is against the Magic?
I actually do not know that one.
3-4.
Well, I guess we'll see if that holds true this series. If it does go 7 and they end up losing in 7.
Yeah. I don't think
exciting
that it will,
things.
but I did say the
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What did you say? It's a cliffhanger now. Suspense is killing me.
Oh, I was going to say, I said last night to Ben, the Magic played the Celtics tough. I don't think it'll be a lot different in the playoffs, but the Magic, they're a 7 seed, but I think they can win a game.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. I got my Celtic stuff on, as everybody can see, getting ready for it. But, we'll see how it goes. It should be a good one, though.
Nice.
Definitely might be one of the better series for the Celtics. I'll say that much, too.
Yeah, a couple of things that are outside of the draft here, with James Bradberry coming in for a visit to the Bills free agent corner, and then trade rumors with Jalen Ramsey going to the Bills, potentially in Ryan Clark's mind, which I absolutely disagree and hate the idea of it. But what do you guys think? Scott, we can start with you. What do you think about Jalen Ramsey or James Bradberry? Floor is yours.
Politely no to both of them. Bradberry, I would hate less than Jalen Ramsey. Like, I don't think Bradberry, he wasn't even active for the Eagles for most of the season last year. So he's an older vet that wouldn't hate if they brought him in as like a camp guy, a veteran to be around for some of the younger guys, but he definitely wouldn't come in and be a cornerback too. But, kicking the tires on a vet who's probably vet minimum, I don't hate, but I definitely don't want him to be a part of the starting defense next season. And then Jalen Ramsey, he's a good player, but he's definitely past his prime. And I don't know how they would afford that. They've, $3 million in cap space, and the only way to really do that would be to renegotiate his contract or extend it out longer. And I don't think that that's feasible. And I also don't know if he's the kind of guy that would fit in well in the Bills locker room. So respectfully no to both of them.
Yeah, Bradberry, if you're going to bring in Bradberry, you might as well just bring back Trey White. I think Trey White would have more to give. I think we saw even last year towards the end of the year, he actually played some meaningful minutes for the Ravens and had some good moments there. So if you're going to kick some tires on an old guy, I'd rather do it with like a Trey White over Bradberry. But again, like Scott said, if it's vet minimum and he's a camp guy, just to bring him in, he's got experience, help the younger guys a little bit, then yeah, I guess it doesn't hurt, and they do need bodies at the end of the day for camp. You see that, throughout the next few months, you'll see guys be brought in for that purpose. But yeah, Jalen Ramsey, I agree with Scott. It's just as much fun as it would be to see Ramsey interact with Allen as teammates now, after the comments that he had about Allen and that whole kind of story of those two, it'd be funny. But I don't want, like Scott said, I don't know how you fit that. I think he's making $25 million this year. So how would you
16.6 according to Spot Track?
Oh, well, how would you make it fit either way? Like you said, Scott, $3 million. It's not gonna
25
work,
next year, 26 after that, and then 36. So there is a potential out. It looks like in 2026 again.
And
But yeah, disrespectfully, hell no. I don't want Jalen Ramsey on the Buffalo Bills. And James Bradberry, I think when he had his free agent stint a few years ago, that was someone maybe the Bills were hoping to get at corner, but I think he was a target, but my memory serves me correct. But now, like you mentioned, vet minimum, veteran type of guy can still contribute. Hopefully, you don't know what he's going to be like coming off an injury last year. So one of those guys where, again, yeah, you bring him in, see what he has, and see what you can get out of him. Maybe you strike some gold there and get a little lucky. You'll be seeing it all when this airs tomorrow, but there was a news of Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State, who is a former track star, just like Scott Casson, our guy. So what do you guys kind of off the cuff here? What do you guys think? He's a outside man press cornerback, according to NFL Draft Buzz, and he's not one of the guys we were going to talk about tonight. So anything off the cuff that you have to say about meeting with Darian Porter?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some things about him. Haven't gone in depth with at least his tape. But it's a guy. It's very apparent that they're looking corner heavily and in the first 3 rounds easily, right? I mean, they've brought in guys for the top 30. They visited with a lot at the combine, and now you add another name here. I mean, if you already look at the top 4 corners who they did bring in, they already brought in Morrison, Amos, Ravel, Strong, which we'll get to a few of them in a little bit, but they're looking corner, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do end up double dipping at corner somewhere throughout the draft, whether both early, one late. But yeah, just add them to the list and see who they kind of pick out as their favorites here.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about him. I haven't watched a lot of his tape. I do know, like you said, he's the man press guy, which is what they did more of towards the end of the season last year. They played a lot of man in the playoffs. I can't remember who they brought in to be their new DB coach, but the guy from New England, he's more of a man guy. I know McDermott's a zone scheme. It's always going to be a zone scheme, but having guys who have that ability to play man, and then the theory is that Kaiir Elam tried his best to prove wrong, that if you're good in a man scheme, you can fit your way into a zone scheme. Maybe they're trying to see that with him. Yeah, like I said, I don't know a ton about him, but I do know that he's fast. I looked up his track times really quick, and boy can fly. So without having that kind of speed on the team, even if it's in the return game, which I don't know if he's done that before or not, isn't a bad thing.
Right on. Yeah, definitely kind of some reserve about trying to get a press man guy in here, given what happened with Kaiir Elam. But I don't think that my theme for this Bills team is going to continue to be, past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Eventually, that's going to hold true, and they're going to buck some trends and get over the hump and end up winning a championship here in Buffalo with Josh Allen. So I'm going to continue that with a guy like Darian Porter too. I think he, just because Elam didn't work out, I don't think that really means anything for Porter, and it's on the guy to come in and try to make a name for himself here. With that, sorry, I almost missed this one here. Scott and I both did the stadium experience this week. So Scott, take us through just what you thought of the whole thing, and pressing the button at the end to play the shout song. I mean, how exciting was that?
I didn't do that.
What
the heck? No, I didn't push any button. The only button I pushed was on the machine to say, yes, charge my credit card.
They said
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. You got to email them and ask them and say, I got to come back and I got to get that. I got to get that experience. You didn't get the full experience.
Yeah, apparently not. But no, it was cool. I don't want to say I was disappointed, because it was really cool. But I didn't really see or learn anything about the stadium that I didn't already know or see on social media. Getting to see the model up close and personal was cool. Getting to see what the seats will be like, which I guess was cool, even though I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've actually sat down at a Bills stadium.
It's going to be way better on those seats than it is on a bench, though.
yeah, I don't know. I stay on the whole game. I'm into it. And then they're showing some of the food options, and I was kind of like, yeah, just like wherever the bathrooms are, wherever the closest beer stand is all I really need. So I don't know. Maybe they skipped some of the bells and whistles because I could tell I was more of a true football guy. You needed that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. Disappointed I didn't get to push any kind of a button. I did get to sign the wall. But yeah, I got my seasons locked up for the new stadium, which was really exciting. And now just kind of bummed that you have to wait a year and a half before you're actually in there. But I was hoping to learn a little bit more about the stadium or see some stuff that you haven't seen on Twitter or in the news, but there really wasn't anything. But I guess it's not. It's a football stadium. We're not hiding any trade secrets. So I don't know what that could have been, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it was kind of cool to see the seat options and see like where you would be undercover and just the amount. I didn't realize how little room there is on the Bills home sideline up in the top level.
Yeah, because the press box,
the current stadium, everything's underneath you in the 300 level at the current stadium, and there's 35 rows of seating basically in most 300 level sections. Well, here there's only 16, and the last row is kind of under that press box, and I almost went for it for row 12 on that side, but ultimately decided to save a couple of bucks and head over towards you on the visitor sideline, and wasn't quite anything available next to you, so I took one section over, so you'll still be to my right, a section to my right as we are now. Did he bomb it?
Oh yeah,
amazing money. All right, and so I thought it was really neat. I kind of really nickeled and dimed my ticket guy, and I really kind of dug in and had him he clicked through every single prompt on every TV that we went by. There are a lot of screens, and I was just like, well, what's that supposed to be? I didn't want to miss out on anything. I threw up some built-in Buffalo love. Yeah,
he showed us one seat, and I said yes.
There you go.
He said,
so
do you want these? And I said they're on the 50. Yes.
Exactly. I was definitely more into it. I took my mom and definitely was trying to have her be able to take it all in. The wall walking in with all the history and things was cool, and had a little hype video before, showed you the wind panels. Being an engineer, was trying to analyze and how that works out. They showed you a little bit about the field being heated and all how that system works and things like that. So it was really neat to see what the new stadium is going to offer to people. I'm excited. I mean, even just like the walk in, the whole area around the outside, and the height of the building, everything is just going to be impressive, state of the art, and I think it's exciting. I mean, I've never been through anything like this in my lifetime, so pretty cool to see what's come from Rich Stadium to New Era Field to Ralph Wilson Stadium to, and I know I got the order wrong, but you know how it went to now Highmark, and then now you're going to just have that be a parking lot eventually. I think the most exciting times is going to be actually once they get rid of the current stadium and have everything parking so that you can, so the whole traffic flow is better. I think that's going to be, I think it's going to be really cool. So that whole new stadium area is I think it's going to be pretty awesome, but I'd say give it 4 to 5 years before all the landscaping, all the parking gets settled, everything else gets into a flow of how it's going to go on game day. I really think that it's going to be one of the neatest experiences in the league to come to Buffalo and attend a game. Or other events.
It was funny. It was funny. They asked like where we normally tailgate stuff. We told them, he was like, okay. So like in relation to the new stadium, like Big Tree Inn will be like over here. And I was like, yeah, dude, I freaking looked at the stadium every game day this season. I know where it is. Like, oh, that's what that was.
Well, my walk will be shorter to each game for that. It actually will be farther now that if I go to Big Tree and then cut back in.
Right, because it protrudes through that whole ECC area, right?
Right now they're actually, so I wake up every day and they're out there. I hear them every day, and they're right now expanding that little entrance right where ECC is, right off of Big Tree. So that's been cool. That's been my stadium experience so far. Mine for the one that you guys went to is coming up in a few weeks. Nice. But yeah, definitely excited now to hear some of the stuff that you guys said and see. I'm gonna also make sure I get the full experience and
push that button, dude.
I know. I'm gonna say there's a button I should be pushing. And
well, I heard the shout song playing while I was in the room, talking over the logistics of the seats and everything. You didn't hear the shout song play once while you're in there?
Nah, I wasn't in there for very long. It was like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Guys in and out. So I took like over 90 minutes. All the time you didn't take, I took that and more, asking all these questions, trying to figure it out. Paid $1,000 less for my PSL than you did, so I was pretty happy for that. Yeah, it was just I'm like, where's that sound come from? And on the way out, there's a little red button, kind of like if an emergency stop button on any sort of a panel or work area or anything of that nature. If you've been around any sort of industry, you can imagine just a little red button there, and boom, shout song goes, and you dance and you rejoice to be a 2026 and beyond new stadium season ticket holder. And that helps from the pain that they took from your wallet. No, it's really not bad. Honestly, like the actual seat price overall is like maybe $200 more in 2026 than what I'm paying in 2025. So it's really a cool thing. And, people think that it's pricing people out. And I would say I would disagree after seeing all that. And there's going to be more open with even lower PSL costs and things like that. I know it's still hard for people to come up with that money, but it is actually not
I heard it'll go
the worst thing,
as low as like 1,000, which isn't that bad. You can spread out the payments. I think there was a lot of like sticker shock when they announced the first one because it was all the club level seats and whatever. But yeah, if you're up with the plebes like us, it's not too terrible. And if they win, I don't care whatever it costs is fine.
As long as we get to see Josh Allen slinging it, makes everything better.
Bring a Lombardi. We built the stadium. At least they can do is get that script written so we can get a championship. So, all right, we'll go into the draft now and check out some cornerbacks here. Scott, go ahead and start with your guy.
Yeah, so my first guy, in my opinion, is the best cornerback in the draft, and that is Will Johnson out of Michigan. A lot of mocks early on had him going, in the teens, maybe even as high as top 10. Kind of been falling down a bit closer. I don't know if he falls all the way to 30, but closer to where maybe you could realistically think the Bills would trade up, make a move for him. Like I said, Will Johnson out of Michigan, missed about half of last season with turf toe. If you follow college football, Michigan, even though they beat Ohio State, wasn't that great last year. So you wonder, like, what if that could have been a business decision? Like, how hurt was he really? So I don't really think you hold that injury much over him. But even though he missed half the season, he was still a third-team All-American. So the stats he put up in just 6 games were good enough for that. The year before, 2023, when they won the national championship, he was probably the best defensive player on that team. And that team was won based on their defense most of the time. So shows the kind of player he was. He's big. He's 6'2". Given his size, he's still pretty fast. He's a ball hawk. He'll definitely get you some interceptions. Set the Michigan record for most pick sixes in a career, I believe, with 3. Sometimes, he can kind of fall for the shiny object and jump on the first move of double move because he wants to make that play. But all good cornerbacks are a little bit greedy. So as long as it doesn't become too much of a habit, I'm okay with that. But how would you guys feel if the Bills ended up with Will Johnson or even if they traded up for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think this would be a home run if you can get a guy like Will Johnson. He's played in big time games. He's played in big time moments. He has the production there to show. He's got the size. He's got pretty much what you're looking for in a cornerback for your franchise. And he's also, though, I just want to point out he does like to play in the cold weather. He grew up in Detroit, went to Michigan. His dad also went to Michigan. But yeah, just a guy that grew up in up north in the cold weather. So I don't think he would mind coming to Buffalo a little bit either, and playing here, and being able to train with a guy like Josh Allen throwing the ball on the other side.
Yeah, it kind of leaves you drooling a little bit or salivating to think about a guy with such aggressiveness, but also the IQ he possesses as well. When he gets into a McDermott defensive scheme, how well that could go for the Bills. But I do not love the fact that if they can get him at 30 and that's what they do with their first round pick, I think that would be obviously a really big steal, given that he's a projected mid first rounder, but not loving the idea of trading up for a cornerback in general. But odds are they're going to trade up for one position or another. And, I've been saying this, basically the offseason is that CB2, cornerback 2 is the biggest need in the starting lineup for the Bills. So if they can get a guy like Will Johnson, I feel like that is an immediate impact type dude that comes in and plays right away. There's no transition really. He doesn't need to sit a year or anything like that. I think he'll, be able to come in and play. So I wouldn't hate it. I just, I'm not sure I'm super enthused about trading up for, depending on how high they have to go. But if he sits there at somewhere between 24 and 25 and they can go up that, little to get him, certainly, anytime you can get a stud football player like that and you add that to your defense, that's special.
My first guy, I'm going to go on to Ole Miss here with Trey Amos, a guy who we just learned is a top 30 visit, which is a theme I think you'll see with some of the guys we talk about here. But top 30 visit from Ole Miss, 6'1", 195. So a little bit, an inch shorter than Will Johnson, like you just talked about, but similar size when it comes to just the build. Ran a 4.4 340, a guy who plays physical. Another guy that kind of can get a little jumpy as well. The one thing about knock on him is he's got to become better at tackling. He can sometimes get into arm tackling, which I guess you would fit right in with the Buffalo Bills when it comes to missed tackles sometimes. But that's when you're looking for a cornerback too. I'd rather have a guy that is better in coverage, physical guy, rather than a guy that is a better tackler than he is at coverage. So. Another intriguing prospect here. Guy, obviously, the Bills are interested in. So how would you guys feel about Trey Amos?
Yeah, I don't think that, if they just put him on the side Rousseau plays on, then they won't have to worry about a running back getting that far to where the cornerback has to make. No, just kidding. But, I think that those things can be developed and improved easily once he gets in the system. So, I think, high motor guy that's going to bring a lot of energy and would love to add him. He's probably one of the most popular picks right now for Bills mock drafts.
He also started the Sun Belt, went to Bama, then went to Ole Miss. So he's a guy that's kind of moved around a little bit as well. Sorry to cut you off there, Scott. But then, and also he's projected
that's
1 to 2.
What I was going to say.
Yeah, projected 1 to 2 round guy. So another guy that you kind of could maybe even trade up for in the second, get late 1, stay at 30. So we'll see where he goes. But yeah, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Yeah, kind of a later developing kind of guy. Like you mentioned, he started at the Sun Belt, Louisiana, was fine. Did well, went to Alabama last year, was fine. And then this year, his 5th year at Ole Miss, really came into his own. Going up against SEC receivers for the last 2 years, you don't really have to worry about any kind of a drop-off in competition. If anything, some NFL teams might be a drop-off in competition. But you kind of wonder with guys like that, like how much higher is the ceiling. Hopefully there's more they can get out of him. But I would say he's probably the most realistic first-round corner that the Bills could get at 30. So he very well could be a guy whose name we hear a week from tonight, and a guy who is trying to fight for a starting spot on the Bills next season. And if so, I think he will come in and do well. I just wonder if he ever really takes that step to that lockdown number 1 corner type spot, just because you hear it all the time in basketball. Now this isn't basketball, but the senior doesn't get drafted as high as a freshman because the freshman has a lot more potential. The guy who is a later developer, been there for 5 years, wonder how high the ceiling is. But I think he could come in, probably plug and play, start, and be a serviceable corner for the next, hopefully, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you can't teach 6'1", 4'4", though. So that's another thing he has going for him.
Yeah,
this is true.
All right, cool. My first guy is Maxwell Hairston, another guy that I think you see mocked a ton to the Bills. I think probably one of the best fits for a guy prospect to the Bills. Did have some injury stuff in college, but I don't think it's necessarily super concerning. A lot of pick sixes, I believe. 3 career pick sixes to tie a Kentucky record. 4.28 40, so stands 5'11", but I think that a nice zone cornerback. Is it somebody you can trade up for in the second round, or does he fall as far as you need him to get him in the second? I'm not sure. A lot of the mocks that I see have him going earlier, second, mid-second, before the Bills would have their choice there. And I've seen even mocks have Hairston drafted at 30. So one of those guys that I think, rare speed at the position, good zone corner. I like guys that can run fast.
Don't we all? Yeah, he's a guy that, again, wouldn't shock me if he ended up on the Bills next week, maybe at 30, maybe early in the second. Is really fast, more of a man guy, struggled a little bit in the zone from what I've seen, and also like what I've heard from listening to some of the analysts. Also not a great run tackler. But again, like not many corners are or want to be, but in the Bills system, you really have to be. So could that turn the Bills off? Maybe. Or do they think that, if he's a good coverage corner, they can get him to buy in and help in the run game where he can? But yeah, another guy that wouldn't surprise me if we heard his name called in the Bills next week.
Yeah, another Michigan corner. So a little bit of a trend there, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's interesting to me just because, again, it's how would they want him to fit here? Because he's a guy, again, 183 on the lighter end, on the smaller end. Oh yeah, not Michigan College, but from Michigan, Michigan,
the state
hometown.
of Michigan.
Yeah, state of Michigan, state of Michigan there. But yeah, he's another guy where faster but lighter. So how is that going to mix in the NFL with the physicality of the game? We'll see how that translates over. But definitely a guy that if the Bills do take next Thursday, should be a guy that people should be excited to see and excited to kind of see how he does. One, develop, and two, just even immediately come over to the NFL. So we'll see where he goes. He's a guy where, yeah, like you said, Lance, he could kind of end up before the Bills. He could end up after the Bills. I mean, where does he really go? I see him more, right before the Bills, but right there at 30. So yeah, we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, he's another kind of one of those interesting prospects of how will his game translate in the NFL when it comes to just his size and his ability at corner.
And only other real, he only played one full season at Kentucky. His freshman year, he redshirted, only played in the game. Sophomore year, played the whole season. Last year, had a shoulder injury. I think he only played 5 or 6 games.
Seven games. So.
Yeah, 7. Okay, so obviously missed 5. Yeah, so he just hasn't played a ton of football. So there's not as much tape out there as there are guys like Trey Amos who, played and started somewhere for 5 years. So that could be good. Maybe he has a higher ceiling, could develop, get stuff out of him, but just not as much film out there of him as maybe some other guys, which again could be a good thing.
Right on. Another guy that I like, Azariah Thomas from Florida State, just dynamic football player, probably a guy you can get with one of your second round picks, if not, differently. I don't know if he'd fall into the third round or not. Projected second late per NFL Draft Buzz. Take that for what you will. But, a 6'2" guy, nearly 200 pounds. I think he, again, just a big athlete, can come into this system and compete. Still only 20 years old. So, guy did a lot at Florida State. I think he's only coming in off a junior season here, so only played 3 years there. And what do you guys think about Thomas?
Yeah, he's a prototypical 6'2". You like that size at corner. You like that kind of frame at corner. I believe he'd be the last if he does get drafted. I can't remember. Would he be the most recent Florida State since EJ for the Bills? That's obviously something to dig into.
Keon Coleman.
Oh my gosh! I literally last year. Yep, you are completely correct.
Can we edit that?
That's a tough one.
I was gonna say if you have questions about how he is in coverage, just ask Keon. They probably went against each other in practice every day.
Some of these guys we're talking about today too are going to be like, all right, what is their relationship to current and former Bills players? So I think that does have a little bit to do with some of the guys that at least I pick when I think of where they go to school and where the Bills have kind of that pipeline.
Yeah, and when you look at Brandon Beane definitely looks at that type of stuff where he's gonna go and ask Keon and see like, hey, what do you think of him, not just on the field but off the field as well? just because, that especially with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, they talk a lot about character guys and getting guys in the locker room that are good in the locker room and keeping it that way. And, we've had guys that have been issues before, and that they don't want to bring in a guy that will be an issue. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. Haven't been able to watch too much film on him, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, he'd be a guy where I think, even if you end up trying to double dip and he does fall to the third and you end up trading back into the third, you could potentially get two guys there high.
Yeah, I like the idea of like if you get that big D tackle in the first round or something other than corner, could be one of the guys you take, outside of the first, maybe even outside of the second.
Yeah, he started last year. Actually had a pretty good season as a reserve. He still played a ton 2 seasons ago when Florida State probably should have been in the playoff. Last year, they were so bad in general, it's hard to hold many stats against them last year. But yeah, had a few good reps, has the size. He's the kind of guy, like if you were to see him on the field, you never watched him play, you'd be like, yeah, he looks like a football player. He looks like he could be a solid corner, has the right build. So, sometimes that's half the battle. My next guy, unless anybody else has anything else on him.
No, go for it.
All right, is Siobhan Revelle Jr. from East Carolina. And he's a guy, if he didn't tear his ACL last season in October, or maybe not talking about him as a guy who could fall to the Bills, because he probably would have gone a bit higher than he's mocked right now. Kind of the late first, early to mid second, probably in the second, coming off that injury, because you don't know if he's going to be ready for camp. Again, same thing we were just talking about, prototypical size, 6'2", about 200 pounds, didn't run anything at the combine, so we don't know the stats on that coming off the injury, but he was a stud last season at East Carolina 2 seasons ago. He played the full season. I do believe the Bills have brought him in for a top 30 visit, at least met with him at the combine. So he could be somebody there in the second round. If maybe a guy like Kenneth Grant falls to the Bills at 30 and they take him in the first round, could be somebody that they could target at 56 or 62.
I'm wondering if they brought him in for just to see physically how he's doing as well. I know that that's very common for the NFL when they bring these top 30 visits, is see how he's coming along with that knee, see how it is with everything. He's able to get
absolutely.
Physical. And a guy, like 6'2", another guy that's size-wise you really love in a corner. From a smaller school, obviously, in East Carolina compared to these SEC guys we've been talking about. But yeah, I mean, before the injury, looked like a guy who could easily be a top tier corner in this draft. And now, because of that injury, it's kind of put him on the teeter of like, is he round 1? Is he round 2? Where is he at, really? So I'd be excited. I mean, the Bills obviously didn't care about missing some guys for 6 games when they signed certain guys, so I don't think they'd mind giving him the time to come back if they do need to have him sit out for the first few weeks of the season. So another interesting prospect, I think, especially for corner for the Bills.
Yeah, definitely one of those guys that could turn into a really good partner for Christian Benford and beyond there. If medicals check out, again, the length we talked about, it's showing here 4.4 speed. I'm not sure where they're getting that data from, but pretty good. Just the rare size and athleticism Scott talked about. If he hadn't been injured, it's one of those guys that you are just crossing your fingers that you could trade up for to get at 15 to 18. But if your team could get up there, but with the injury, we'll see how the teams view his medicals, and I think that's going to be a theme for your guy here, Ben, right? As well.
Yeah, Benjamin Morrison's another guy. He was another top 30 visit. Did not run a 40. The projection for him would be around that 4.5 40. So a little bit slower compared to some of the guys we've talked about as well. Is projected to be that round 2 range, could potentially fall, but yeah, in that round 2, a guy who is more of a zone corner, so we won't, it does fit more than what the Bills like to play. But again, we have a new cornerbacks coach that in the past has been known to be in a man coverage system. So who knows if the Bills do play a little bit more man this year. But yeah, he's another guy that will have to improve at tackling. It's kind of a growing theme here with a lot of these corners. I mean, especially corners coming in the NFL. a lot of them do have to develop better tackling tendencies and better tackling just breakdowns. So we'll see with him. He does also need to get a little bit bigger and stronger, but has the good reaction time, that kind of just ability to stay with guys. So we'll see how he does there. We'll need to get better underneath though in coverage as well. But yeah, we'll see how he does. And another guy from Notre Dame as well. Don't know if I said that, but another Notre Dame guy as well. I'll have a different one later on as well. But yeah, Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah, another guy. Not another guy. He's actually tackled Marvin Harrison Jr. in college, so he has that under his belt, has that going for him. But yeah, I think ball skills for me with Morrison that I love most about him. So think that when you watch him play football, ball skills are one of the first things that I look at with him. So definitely would be a guy to come in to, again, medicals check out, and the Bills are ready to rip with him. Can really turn this defense into something pretty spectacular.
Yeah, don't have too much more to add. You guys said it.
All right, tell us about your next guy, Ben. We'll let you go, and then go Scott, and then I'll finish up.
Yes, I was muted there. My third guy was more of a fun guy here. It wasn't a guy that you'll see early in the draft. You might not even see drafted. Could be really like a late round 6th, 7th guy. I always like to throw one of those guys in here for each position. So my guy is Isas Waxter. Might have mispronounced the first name here, but from Villanova. Big reason why I chose him. He did play with Christian Benford in college at Villanova, so there's fun little tidbit there. If they do bring him in, awesome. Who knows? Yeah. They'll have the 2 Villanova guys out there. But a 6'1", 209. We're in a 4.56 40. So again, speed kind of leaves some to be desired, but build wise has that corner build. Very aggressive corner, will get very physical with you. So who knows, maybe they look at that and they say, hey, maybe we can hone that in and turn that into a late round steal like they did with a guy like Christian Benford. But yeah, another one where not the fastest, and tackling again, he had a 20% missed tackle rate in college, and he went to Villanova. So it's not like he's playing these SEC, running backs nonstop and he's missing these tackles. So also tackling, yes, leads a little bit to be desired there as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know anything about this guy. I didn't know he existed until his name popped up on our outline here. So, yeah, good size. I mean, that's can't teach that. So we'll see if he comes in. You always wonder, for me, with those guys that have those relationships, if they can turn that into something where he becomes a target for them in the UDFA front, or if they have a pick and they don't have necessarily a need where they could be swayed to just take a guy like that has more of the relationship with people, can come in at a spot that there's no shortage of need there for corners at the back end of the roster. So if he can develop into a 4th corner or something like that and play some special teams, there's no doubt that would be valuable.
And just like we talked about earlier with Thomas there, another guy where Bean's probably gone to Benford and been like, hey, what's he like in the locker room? What's he like here and there? Just because, again, when free UDFA time comes around, you start seeing names pumped out, and there's always 1 or 2 favorites, and he would definitely be, I think, an early fan favorite, just because, again, it's always good to see a story like that where a former teammate comes in.
Villanova, more than just a basketball school.
Yep.
People down here not big fans of Villanova basketball, stealing Maryland's coach, but that's for another podcast.
Huge fan of their alumni, though, for the Knicks here, as they're going to beat the Celtics in the 2nd round of the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, you got to get there first.
Yeah.
Yeah, now the Celtics will have a hard time getting them.
Hey, the Pistons are no joke.
Yeah, the Pistons are definitely not a joke, and that Cat trade will look great if you guys lose to Detroit. So we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, my last guy, born out of Kansas State, Jacob Parrish. More of a definitely day 2, maybe even day 3 guy. A little undersized, only 5'10", is listed at 191, but I can't imagine he plays that heavy. Gets kind of, I don't want to say bullied, but gets knocked around by bigger receivers sometimes off the line or at the top of the route. But he's good in zone. He does attack the ball. A guy that the Bills could look at, like I said, day 2 or 3. So probably not going to come in, be an immediate starter, but similar to what Ben was talking about, come in, be a depth guy, and was solid at Kansas State. Honorable mention, all Big 12 last season.
I will say they say he's going to bring special teams value. So also 4.35 speed is really good for that position. So definitely a guy to look at later in the draft.
I will say I have seen him mocked higher than even into a day 2. Like I have seen him get up there. Who knows if he ends up obviously going that high. But yeah, because I think of his speed and just everything that kind of bumps him up a little bit. But again, how high is his ceiling? That's I think the number one thing for him is at that size of 5'10", 191. How much higher is it? Obviously, we've seen corners that are undersized be great in this league, but especially nowadays, you're seeing a lot more corners that are at that 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", that tend to exceed faster, especially when they're a little bit more of a question mark.
Yeah, and he was another top 30 visit for the Bills. Did really well at the combine, which is I think why he's shooting up the draft boards. Unlike the athleticism score, he was the 4th highest rated corner. That 40 definitely helped with that. But also a 10-11 broad jump, 36.5 vertical. So he's a really good athlete. And if he's in the right spots, so hopefully he can teach some of the other stuff. But yeah, a guy the Bills are like enough to at least bring him into Buffalo.
Yeah, and my last guy is going to be Kobe Bryant. I just, that's going to be awesome if they draft him and we can say that game after game. I'm a big fan of the late basketball player, so that name, although not spelled the same, rings deep for me, and I would love to see a guy with that name on the team here later in the draft, type of guy like your guy was as well. But a lot of good stats, 13 interceptions, 22 pass breakups, 4-sport type of guy. Not as fast as everyone would like, probably at 4.53. His weight's at 180 is a little bit low, but I don't really worry about the weight when it comes to these guys because they're going to get into this team, get on the team's dietitian plan and things like that, and they're going to be able to play at a high level at whatever weight that their body can handle. And the Bills obviously have one of the better science departments and things like that, and allow them to, although I'm not sure how it worked out with Epinesa yet, given they messed with him quite a bit, but wasn't terrible. So I think that guys like that can come in and get to a point where they're not as undersized as they may be at the stature of their career.
Yeah, I think, another guy where speed-wise, just like, we talked about with Waxer and everything, where is it going to become a major concern? Because he also ran a 4.53 at the combine, so that's a little bit slower than I think, especially some of the guys we've even talked about more in the high 4.4s, in the 4.3s. But yeah, 6 feet, you can, like you said, Lance, you can build up on that. So if you end up getting the 6 feet, 190 range, 195, that would be great. That's solid 10, 15 pounds you got to put on there. But if you can snag him late and end up being that guy that you double dip with late in the draft, I mean, it puts less pressure on him to really come in and perform right away, where he can focus on that early development, get in here and go from there. So would be a fan.
Yeah, and it was the other corner named Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati who got drafted, I think, in 2022. So it's a popular name for corners here recently.
I think it was also a different spelling of Kobe as well. I think all three of them were different spellings.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I remember that kid. He was on their playoff team.
Amazing. Well, we're going to shift now to the safety position. Ben, why don't you start since Scott started the corners, and we'll roll through our guys here at the safety position.
Yeah, so I talked about one Notre Dame corner. I'm going to talk about a safety from Notre Dame here. Xavier Watts, a guy who's projected in that second, third round. And so if they do want to really get aggressive and really add to the safety room, he's a guy that could be an option. did meet with him at the combine. Was not a top 30 visit. Didn't have a Zoom, but met with him at the combine. He ran a 4.56. So again, speed wise is not going to be the fastest of fast safeties, but safeties you don't necessarily need them to be in that 4.3 all the time compared to corner where it's a little bit nicer. But he is a former wide receiver, so you see the instincts come into play a lot. Had 7 picks in 2023, had 6 picks in 2024. So back-to-back years, had combining for 13 interceptions in those two years. So guy who will go get the football, but again, still needs to kind of get better with man coverage, needs to get better at tackling. So you're still seeing, I think, a little bit of that transition from receiver to safety. But I think potential-wise, if you're looking at a guy just with raw ball instincts, just going and getting it, he's a guy that will make some plays for you and be able to force some turnovers.
He's electric.
Yeah,
that's just an engineer joke. Sorry, couldn't help myself. But yeah, love the thought of him in the second or third round, and I don't have too much else to say about him other than what you said. You said a lot, so that was good.
Yeah, first team All-American last year. One of 2 unanimous All-Americans. The other one was Travis Hunter. He's pretty good, so it's good company to be in.
Pretty. Tell us about the number 1 safety
next, you want me to go?
in the draft profile. You got it.
What is that?
Tell us about the number 1 safety in the draft here.
Ben's not in the draft. Nick Amenwari, as Ben made fun of me for how I spelled his name, but I spelled it phonetically, so I would say it correctly because his mother is probably watching and would appreciate me pronouncing his name correctly. Nick Amenwari out
Nick's
of South
mother,
Carolina.
not Ben's mother, right?
Well, both of them, honestly. Everybody loves enunciation. Nick Amenwari, really impressed at the combine. Similar to the last corner I talked about, was maybe a borderline first-round pick, went to the combine, blew everybody away, moved up everybody's draft boards, ran a 4.38, which at his size of 6'3", 220 is flying. Broad jump of 11.6, vertical of 43, which is like LeBron level type high. So the guy's a sick athlete. He's a hard hitter. Like, he can come down and he plays the run game well. A little bit questionable in coverage sometimes, but I think that hopefully that's something that's in the right defensive system can come in and fix. I don't necessarily think that the Bills will go safety this early, but if he falls to 30 and there's not other guys there they want, and possibly, and if they were to go, he'd probably be the best option for them.
Yeah, heat-seeking missile as his profile will read. So definitely one of those guys that has it all when it total package as a prospect.
Yeah, if safety was a major need for the Bills, I think he would be one of the guys that I'd be pounding on the table for. Go get. It just would be a huge addition to this team. Another guy, Scott, that you picked that played in the same state that they grew up in. So another South Carolina guy, played at South Carolina, so you're on a roll there with that. But yeah, he's a guy who I absolutely love. We'll see how he translates to the NFL, but I think he'll translate very well. Could be one of those guys where you look back in a few years and say, man, I wish the Bills did, even though you weren't thinking safety. But yeah, I think he could be a huge for whichever team gets him. Not sure, like you said, Scott, if he's a huge fit at 30 for the Bills. We'll see if they are looking that way, but it does not seem that way. I don't believe. Yeah, he was not. They've only had 1 safety in, which I'll actually be talking about in a little bit, for a top 30 visit. He was not one of them. Although I do think they met with him at the combine. If I'm not, yes, they did meet with him at the combine though. So could be, but yeah, like Scott said, probably not at 30, but would not be mad.
Yeah, kind of weird. You see some mock drafts with the Bills taking a safety in the first round. I don't know. I guess it depends on what they do at corner before the draft. You see they had visits like we talked about before with Bradberry and things like that. So maybe they feel like they can do what they need to do at corner from free agency and maybe another later round pick or a couple picks beyond round 1. But there's some other guys, like we mentioned, other shows with defensive tackle and things like that, where you'd kind of like that position to be the focus early on to get the best prospect you can on the defensive line as well. So the second best safety in the draft as far as a prospect is Malachi Starks from Georgia. 4.35, I believe, or no, 4.5. He ran at the combine, but has that 4.35 type speed and very physical and smart. And I think the IQ there is what the kind of guy that McDermott would love. So Malachi is another guy that's been mocked a ton to the Bills at 30. Again, I'm not really high on getting a safety at 30, but if the board falls a certain way and that's the best player available, a guy like Malachi Starks will come in and make this defense better immediately.
Yeah. Again, another guy that played in Georgia, grew up in Georgia, just same states now. But yeah, Malachi Starks, another guy.
Geography guy.
I know. I'm on a roll with that today. I don't know why, but here we are. But yeah, another guy where, if they do end up maybe even again getting aggressive in the second round, if they have two of them, if they want to go up and get another one early second, I mean, who knows? We've seen teams do that before. Detroit did that 2 years ago with 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, when they traded up there, as well as Tampa Bay also did that 5 years ago now at this point. But yeah, teams do that, and then it ends up working out pretty well. So maybe if they do want to get safety and they're not 100% comfortable with Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp back there, maybe they do get aggressive. But yeah, he would definitely be on the radar for a potential trade up for the Bills in the second.
And he went 3 years at Georgia without any major moving violations, which is honestly maybe more impressive than anything he's ever done on the field.
Right on. I guess I'll go with another guy I have here as Jonas Sanker, a safety prospect out of Virginia, kind of a Senior Bowl guy, just a guy that kind of did everything in Virginia that you could ask for. I think he would be really good, potentially in some special teams units. Potentially, I think it even mentioned he might be. Oh, that says coverage. Okay, so not the return, but guy that if any guy that you can get that's going to be a special team star and one of those guys, he's going to be available when the Bills pick in the fourth round, I believe. So they have 3 picks there in that fourth round. So if they want to go get, he's labeled here on NFL Draft Buzz as a zone-free safety. So I think that's definitely something that the Bills could use. I think Bishop's more of the strong safety type, and they have Rapp who's the same. So it's kind of like, that free safety role would be something that the Bills could look for, and fourth round would be perfect if that's where he ends up landing.
Yeah, definitely a guy who would need some development, but if you're going to draft him in day 3, you expect that. So wouldn't need him to come in and be a starter, just come in and learn. Really good coaching staff, good safeties around him. Yeah, a good, I don't want to say project, because I don't think it's that extreme, but a guy who could come in and develop and, be serviceable within, a few years.
Yeah, you could also be a guy that comes in and if he doesn't perform right away as a starting safety or on defense, he could be a special teams guy there for you. So, energy guy that they could bring in and who doesn't love a good energy guy on special teams to bring the boom. Oh, that was brutal. I'm sorry about that one, but
that's your role in this podcast, man. You're like the energy guy.
I'm gonna hop off, guys. Now I'm gonna hop off. But yeah, who doesn't love a good energy guy, right? And then just bring some pop to this defense.
Right on. Tell us about Billy.
Yeah, my second guy, Billy Bowman Jr. out of Oklahoma, was a top 30 visit. So another top 30 visit that we're bringing up here. Another guy that is interesting because he also has the potential. I've seen a lot of people saying that he has the potential to also be a good corner in this league if they needed to. So top 30 visit, the only top 30 visit safety right now. Maybe they are kind of looking at him to be that hybrid guy that they could use. So he's an interesting guy to see. Does have a really bad tackle rate, 23% missed tackle rate. So that's not ideal. Does lack some size. He's only 5'10", 192. Projected in like that third round. Could end up falling to the fourth maybe. But again, 6 picks in 2023. that's a guy that's going to go get the ball for you. Will force some turnovers. So out of Oklahoma, a guy to keep your eye on, especially once you start getting into that late second, third, maybe even fourth round for the Bills.
A quote unquote ball hawking dynamo from Denton, Texas. What do you think, Scott?
Wow, that's I don't know how to follow that up. A little undersized for safety, only 5'10", so maybe that's why they're talking maybe more move to corner, a bit more corner size. But yeah, he can play both. So if you have somebody who can fit into multiple spots, it makes sense to try to bring him in. And also someone who could probably play special teams for the first couple of years while he gets his feet under him.
Does this coaching staff like versatility on their players? I haven't heard that before.
I think so. That's why Cam Lewis has been around for 10 years.
Fair.
My next guy from the University of Texas, Andrew Makuba, started off at Clemson and then transferred to Texas and then had to do the WWE meme where he beat his old school in the playoff and knocked Texas out. The one I don't know wrestling, Lance probably does, where the guy's like saying, "I'm sorry, I love you," while he takes out his friend. So that's what he had to do to all of his old friends. He's good in coverage. Also a bit undersized, only 5'11", 185, but really good in coverage, lacks a little bit in run support, but that size kind of makes sense. Plays that kind of role as like a robber, they say, more of a free safety. Got to go around and try to ball hawk. Was third team all SEC last year at Texas, projected somewhere in earlier on day three. So another one of those guys you can bring in, try to develop, start off on special teams, maybe becomes a contributor down the road. And also was born in Zimbabwe. And I didn't look this up, but I'm going to say he'd be the first Bills player born in Zimbabwe. I think that sounds right.
Nice. Another guy who's touted with IQ, elite speed and change of direction. So all the things you love. 5'11", 186 listed here on the NFL Draft Buzz site I'm looking at. But one of those guys that you could, value in a year or two, maybe three.
Yeah, another guy that Scott, again, is on a roll here with a guy that played at Texas, grew up in Texas. I know he was born in Zimbabwe, but grew up in Texas. So Scott's on a roll here with the double there. But another guy that
that's what we like here.
could get a little bit better at tackling. That's the one knock on him as well. Is like you said, Scott, he can kind of in run support be a little lackluster there. Does overplay some plays a lot. That's a lot of it as well. Does get very aggressive, and that sometimes can lead to some mistakes there. But it's better to have to rein in aggression on a player than to have to kind of get that out of them. So would be definitely an intriguing prospect here. I think another guy that, if they in the fourth round and, that range, day three, even if he falls into day three for that fourth, fifth, sixth, who knows if they end up moving up for him and going to get him. But another interesting guy.
Right on. Scott, why don't you just go ahead with your last guy?
Sure. So last guy, Jalen Reed out of Penn State, a bit better prototypical size, 6', 211, was second team all Big Ten last year for Penn State's team that made it to the college football semifinal. Say whatever you want about who they played to get there, but they made it there, and James Franklin almost won a big game. But he is solid in coverage, a bit more willing as a run defender, gets off blocks well, can kind of come down in the box and play that role that they'll put Taylor Rapp in sometimes, used to put Jordan Poyer in sometimes. Some complaints with the Bills' safeties recently. They don't get off blocks very well. They're not as great against the run, including some of the guys we spoke about. This guy kind of the opposite of that. Like wants to come down, wants to put a hat on a hat, gets off blocks well, wants to tackle the running back. So if they choose to go that route for this guy, who's also probably somewhere early in day three, rounds 4 or 5, could be more of that run defending safety that the other guys may lack.
A quote unquote special teams demon here. Intensity
that also helps.
Yeah, so definitely a nice prospect, just mocked by Dave in the recent mock draft he put in our chat here. So you can book that. Jalen Reed, future Buffalo Bill.
Although, unfortunately, Ben grew up in Michigan, went to Penn State.
Yeah, I was looking. Don't worry, I was going to be on that one, but unfortunately,
stayed in the Big Ten. Though.
your streak does end there. But yeah, he's another guy that I think he has a lower floor than some of these guys, and maybe not maybe not a super high ceiling when it comes to him. Does need to get smarter. That's the other thing. He does have a lot of mental mistakes on the field, but who better to come to and learn from than Sean McDermott, a guy who has taken safeties and really revitalized some careers. Obviously, Jordan Poyer, Mike Hyde took him to really maybe a little bit of a different level than he was at Green Bay, and then even a guy like Taylor Rapp, who when he was brought in, a lot of people were not very happy with the move. I remember a lot of, especially Rams fans saying like, "Oh, you should not be happy here with him," and there's a reason he got benched. But again, another guy who's looking like maybe after this year might be priced out in Buffalo if he does have another very, very good season. So,
the
not
good
a
news
bad
for
place.
him is he has another year on his contract.
That is true. I forgot that he did. Yep, I thought he had one more, and you were correct. But he's another guy where, like you said, yeah, could be a developmental guy that come in and learn from Sean McDermott and his defensive staff and potentially turn into a starter. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the guys, I'm going to move into mine here, Malachi Moore from Alabama. He does fit your mold there, Ben, with being from Alabama, going to Alabama. Played 5 years in college. Will turn 24 before the season starts, I believe. So this guy is almost like a prospect dream for the Bills, from in my perspective, because he's played in a high level at Alabama with Nick Saban, obviously, in a complex defensive scheme, and just brings that intelligence, but also recognition and ball skills as well. So although he is super smart, he can also communicate very well. And I think that's something that the Bills defense is looking to find moving forward here. They didn't necessarily have that full voice that they had when Hoyer and Hyde were there, kind of directing everything. And I think you saw them get caught by that, learning who's going to communicate now, and just not having that as prevalent as they did when Hoyer and Hyde were back there. So my biggest thing with this guy is more the communication, running a defense and having experience doing that at a high level. I like Malachi Moore as a prospect here.
He's a guy that was a team captain for 2 years at Bama, at top program. Bills drafted, I believe, 3 last year team captains. So could be another guy that they look at just as good character. Might not have this highest ceiling. It might be a little capped there due to just size and just his ability athletically.
Scheme, though, I think his ceiling comes with the scheme he gets placed in, and that's where being in McDermott's scheme might be super beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, with a lot of these guys, yeah, we could be completely dead wrong, and he could become the best safety in the league at the end of the day. I mean, who knows? But when it comes to just his physical abilities, I think it might limit him, at least at first, in the NFL while he's learning. But yeah, another guy who Bills love their character guys. They love their team captains. And if it's day 3, you have plenty of picks in day 3 from a top school in the country. I definitely would not mind taking a shot on him.
Yeah, I know Nick Saban wasn't there last year, but anybody who's a DB under Nick Saban and plays this well, is going to be smart. You're learning from one of the best to ever do it in football in general. Played that star position in Nick Saban's defense, which gets asked to do a lot of things and go on the fly and based off what you see. And he was able to pick that up and was the starter there for a few years. So, yeah, definitely a very high intelligence guy that maybe if he isn't the best athlete on the field, can make up for that with being the smartest on the field, because sometimes that's more important.
Yeah,
Ben, you're up with your last guy now.
Yep. As I Gatton was muted because I'm pulling a lance here with the mutes. But my last guy here is from Iowa. So I picked an Iowa guy last week as well. So another Iowa guy here.
From Illinois, though.
From Illinois, yes, not from Iowa, unfortunately. So the streak continues to stay ended. But from Iowa, 5'11", 203, projected to be very late day 3. Honestly, another guy that could go undrafted. So another guy to kind of keep your eye on here with that. Big special teams potential. And one of Scott's favorite traits is he's older. So he is 25 already. So I was joking, by the way. Scott does not love that if you're listening. Yeah, another older guy. So again, if he is going to be late, that's probably why they're looking at maybe special teams, maybe a guy that might not be the greatest athlete in the world, but can come in and be physical and be a guy that can kind of just be another body at camp and see what he can develop into. But yeah, Sebastian Castro from Iowa.
Yeah, he's also a little undersized, not the best tackler. Ran like a 4.6 40, which is slow and also not fast. So yeah, that's why he's a later round guy. But yeah, been around, seen a lot of football. Iowa's defense is always pretty good. They turn out DBs at a pretty high rate. And Cooper DeJean, Riley Moss. Some are saying DB, maybe not just tight end you. So yeah, a guy that if you get him at the end of the draft or even as a UDFA, will have that high football IQ, and maybe that makes up for some of what he lacks athletically.
Yeah, that's sort of almost a prototypical prospect for McDermott, right? Just having that IQ, doesn't have to be the most physical specimen, I guess, athletically, but can be smart and be where he needs to be. I think McDermott values that. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out for Sebastian and his draft journey. All right, we're gonna go on and just do one linebacker each. Because we just didn't feel like the position required 3 guys each, as the Bills have Bernard and Milano, and then some stuff, a bunch of guys behind them. So it's not necessarily a massive need for the Bills, but definitely with Milano's last year being this year, we could see, if they get the right person in the right spot to get them come in and maybe be easier to move on next year from Milano if that's what they decide.
Yeah.
You're up, Ben.
All right. I'll start off here for linebacker. My first guy, or my only guy, is Jamin Dumas Johnson from Kentucky, a guy who, as I've read more about him, as I saw more about him, he's a guy that I would absolutely love late in the draft here. He's a projected day 3, kind of later day 3 again, maybe 6, 7, maybe
looks
jumps
like
into
he's
that
30
5.
years old.
Well, he's 6'1", 238, and he runs a 4.5 40. So again, athletically kind of gives you what you want in a linebacker at that size and speed. You're obviously not running a 4.3. That would be ridiculous. I think he would be way higher than the 6th or 7th round projection, but high potential guy, good IQ, made a lot of pre-snap adjustments at Kentucky. So again, McDermott, you know how he loves to bring those types of guys in, as mentioned, can be used really in a lot of ways. You can see him dropping a coverage. You can bring him on a blitz. You can have him just play the run. So could be that guy that you look at and say, okay, he's that ideal. Stash him away if you need him. Break in case of emergency. You can use him in any which way you need. So from Kentucky.
Yeah, when you're talking about a team that's brought in AJ Klein off his RV to play in a playoff game, you definitely need those guys as prospects coming in and try to make sure you have that, so you don't need to do that. But yeah, has the Kentucky pedigree there. I wonder if a guy like Stevie Johnson can make a connection for the team. Still has roots there, so one of those guys that has a connection. We'll see if they use that to make a selection with him.
Yeah, my guy is Chris Paul Jr. Hopefully he has better playoff success if he's on the Bills than no relation, but Chris Paul, Chris Paul, the basketball player, who for the first time in his career this season played all 82 games. Good for him. His team did not make the playoffs, but he's a thumper of a linebacker. He has good burst. His 40 time leaves some to be desired. It's not going to blow you away at 4.6, but he does have decent size, 6'1", 222. He's a hard hitter, really good against the run from Ole Miss. Not sure if I mentioned that or not. But he also plays a lot of special teams, over 300 snaps on special teams in his college career. So maybe a bit like the same model as Olafosho, who they brought in last year from Washington, who was more of a run defending linebacker, but good on special teams. And We mentioned it only broke down one linebacker each because it's not as big of a need. But this team seems to draft a linebacker every year, whether you think it's a need or not. And last year, Olafosho made the team, and so did Joe Andreessen, who they didn't draft but signed him as a UDFA. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they draft somebody, just because, like you mentioned, with Milano probably on the way out and some other guys who are question marks at that spot. This could be a guy for day 2, day 3 if he falls there. And they've met with him a couple times, met with him at the Combine, had a Zoom meeting, and they haven't brought him in for a top 30, but the guy they do seem interested in.
Yeah, if he's able to be had in the 3rd round and they're able to make a move to be there to get him, I would be excited. You mentioned all of his traits and things like that. I think he's an excellent prospect for this team. Very excited about the physicality he brings to his game, with the ability to do some coverage in his zone as well, which obviously we know is valuable. So, definitely would welcome that selection at the right timing of this draft.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that you probably want to have him put on a few pounds once he does get to the NFL. But again, that's something that you can, once you come into the NFL, it's your full-time job now where you can get the right trainers and get the right, just people around you to
go to the right wing spot.
Yeah, the right wing spot. I mean, when you come to Buffalo, the food's great, so plenty of places to eat. So yeah, another guy that could definitely be a great fit for the Bills because, like you said, Scott, not more of a fast guy, but a quick guy, a guy that will just kind of twitchy, go get the ball. But he does sometimes need to be more aggressive when it comes to that. He sometimes can kind of just like sit back a little too much and then waits to go. But I mean, that again, you can kind of teach that of just like go get the ball, man. Just that's your one job here. Just go get the ball, and if you can develop and in the system like Sean McDermott's, definitely could be a beautiful fit for the Bills.
My guy is replacements. My guy is Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon. 6'1", 232. Just really good hands. Have some really good instincts in coverage. Can blitz. Has really good timing. To blitz as well. So just kind of one of those guys that's a dog on the defense. I think that he can definitely come in and develop nicely for the Bills if they made a selection. Another guy who has the term special teams demon attached to him in the profiles I'm reading here. But I think that definitely Bassa would be a guy, probably like you said, similar to Olafosho coming in as developmental and would probably get his chance on special teams first and see where he can progress from there.
Fun fact about him, he came into Oregon as a safety and actually started his college career as a safety, then transferred to linebacker. So there you go, another guy that kind of, again, might have a little bit of a good mindset. You a lot of guys I think you see in the NFL, it's good to be able to know where to play multiple positions. Because you see some guys come in, it's like they know their position, that's it, and they're just going to worry about what they need to do. Where especially when you're at linebacker, it's good to know what the safeties need, what the corners need, what everybody needs. So who could be a guy that you come in and can provide a little bit of a different perspective at linebacker, just because he has had the history of playing safety.
Yeah, for sure. Anything on that? Anything else on the linebacker position there, Scott?
No. Again, I think they'll probably take one because they take one every year, but I would say every position on defense is a bigger need than linebacker.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, that does it for our show here this week. Again, pre-recorded on Wednesday, and will be airing on Thursday. So please like and share on all social media platforms. Make sure you're following Built in Buffalo on all social media platforms. Subscribe to that YouTube page and hit the notification bell so you know when we're live. And we'll be live next week with a pre-draft show at 7. And then Built in Buffalo will be live covering the draft throughout there. So be sure to tune in on your favorite social media platform. We will be streaming live on X, Facebook, and YouTube. And with that, we will say, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.